The Detroit Pistons continue to make history. The second of one of those back-to-backs where they played the same team. They played the Brooklyn Nets last night at home in Detroit and got off to a pretty fast start. But things would kind of fall apart for that Piston team in the second quarter. Nets came back, and then, the Nets themselves had an 11-point lead in the third, but give credit to Cade Cunningham, man. A monster second half. Scored 18 of Detroit's 31 points in the third period. Cade Cunningham on his way to 41 points. But it was all for naught, man. It was all for naught as the Nets pull away at the end. And Detroit now suffers loss number 27 in a row. They break the tie with the 2010-2011 Cavs and the 2013-2014 76ers, and now set their sights on the 15-16 Sixers, who had 28 straight losses between two seasons. So they are the single season record holder, but now they're going for the big one. Now they're going for overall bum nights. I don't know, Al, what's going on in Detroit, man?
Simple and plain. This team sucks. Like, there's nothing else to really say about it. I mean, look, you got talent on that team. You got Jalen Duren, you got Cade Cunningham, you got Jaden Ivey, and yet you still can't knock out wins. You got Thompson. It's just crazy, dude. And like, when you look at all the moves that they made this offseason, it's like, oh, there should be a young, fun team coming in here. You see Cade Cunningham coming back off injury last season. Maybe there was that optimism. And then you get Monty, even though it was a crazy bag that you give a head coach, or like you see the work Monty did with the Phoenix Suns. But it's just been a mess, man. I mean, the fact that you have like an outstanding performance from Cade Cunningham last night, he drops 41 points, gives you a great efficient basketball game. You still lose. Like, you lose 118 to 112, and that's like, it's a close matchup. And it's not like the Brooklyn Nets have a lot of like outside of Mikal Bridges, like there's no major superstar on that team. Like, they're in that range, in my opinion. Like, that's where they should be competing with the Nets. But yet when you watch this team, it's like, you have Killian Hayes starting off the season over Jaden Ivey, which didn't make any sense to me. You drafted him fourth, and yet you're choosing Killian Hayes, who, poor shooter, not moving up to his billing of what he came out in the draft. And I'm like, what are we doing here? So, between all of that, it's just, I don't know, like, what the Pistons are doing. You got to figure it out on how you get this team organized, because as of right now, there's just nothing going on.
I feel bad for Cade, man. I feel bad for Cade. He's trying to say all the right things. This is on me as the leader, but man, oh man. I mean, that's a huge burden to bear when you want to be the franchise player and you're taking on 27 straight losses on top of having an outstanding year. I mean, mired in this 27 game streak, Andrew, is Cade Cunningham is having, close to a most improved type of season, a healthy season where he's coming out guns blazing, scoring the ball very well. But man, not even enough to get these guys a W. I'm hurting for that guy, man.
CP, you should feel sorry for him. It was the same situation, Oklahoma State, man. Like, he didn't have spacing around him. He didn't have the right teammates around him. And we fast forwarded. It's the same situation right now. He was the number one pick for a reason. Great player. We look back this summer, right? And I know you don't want to put too much stock into scrimmages, but it was a team scrimmaging versus a Team USA team with Anthony Edwards and Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. And Cade Cunningham looked like the best player on the court. I know it's a scrimmages, but this guy is a future NBA All-Star. I think he could be a future NBA superstar, but it's almost like the Luka thing. You need spacing, you need shooting around him, you need lob threats, you need defense, and then we will see how great Cade Cunningham could really be. But even in this situation, he could show out, right? Without proper spacing and without the right teammates. So I do feel bad for him, but hopefully one day he'll get the right team around him so he could show what he could really do. It's a sad situation. There's no other way to put it.
And the thing is, like, you have like Jalen Duren, right? Like, on that team, who started off the season really hot, and you're like, oh wow, they really found something over here. Maybe you get that Cade Duren 1-2 combo punch, and it's just, there's nothing there, man. It is on most nights, there's really nothing there. And for a fan base, right? And the Pistons have like a really good fan base.
15th in attendance.
And like, yeah, you talk about that attendance. It's like, this is the product you're putting out there, man. Like, if you're the front office, what are you thinking? Like, CP, I'm going to throw it to you. What are you thinking right now that's going to shake things up if you're Detroit right now and you have this issue?
Yeah, I'm thinking first, shake my GM up and get him up out of there, Jazzy Jeff style. Open the front door if you Tom Gores and send Troy Weaver packing. All right, you send him down to Flint because I mean this rests on his hands. You go out there, you give Monty Williams an incredible bag after he turned it down. You remember we talked about this with our guy Justin Termini. Monty Williams did not want the job in the beginning, so now you practically beg him. And he's here, and it's not to say that he's doing a bad job. Obviously, yes, everybody's on the hook for this. Everybody, from players, from front office on down, right? Coach included. But what I'm saying is, it's hard to say whether or not his heart is in it because we're not in that locker room. We're not on the bench. But that's a bad sign, bro. When you turn it down in the beginning, it meant that you didn't want it to begin with.
Phil Jackson style for the
Phil
Knicks, right?
Phil Jackson style, right? Like, it was just not a good look, but you know, a couple extra M's will make you change fast. But they've got to start with Troy Weaver. He's got to fall on his sword by the end of the season. But between now and then, they've got to make a move. I mean, the veterans that they brought in trying to kind of fortify their young players and help them win hasn't converted into anything. And none of the vets that they brought in have been winners previously. Not Bogdanovich, not my guy Alec Burks, not Joe Harris. You know what I'm saying? Like, none of the veteran players have like been to places where they can like really show these young guys like this is where we need to be. A lot of those guys are kind of just like fill-in role players, good vets, but those guys are more so along for the ride. You need winners in here. You need guys that can help bring these young guys along. And so far, the veteran players that they brought in have done nothing. So the next thing on the list is to get those guys out of here. You trade Burks, you trade Bogdanovich. Yes, you get more draft capital. Yes, the next year's draft is not supposed to be great, but you collect some for the future. You go the Sam Presti route. Maybe you absorb some contracts along the way and you try to flip those things down the road. But right now, if your vets aren't helping you, start from there and send them packing.
Do you guys think they need to look at teams for trades like maybe the Warriors or the Lakers that could give up some of their youth and maybe take a Bogdanovich? Because he could probably help a legit contender right now.
Yeah. No question. And speaking of that, let's go to we have a clip from Shams from their FanDuel TV show earlier today. Here was Shams in terms of what the Detroit Pistons could potentially be looking for on the trade market. Let's listen to Shams and react to it.
Moves. They're going to evaluate everything from the front office to the roster. I think at this point, everyone but Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren have to be up for grabs. When you think about guys like Bojan Bogdanovic, Monte Morris, they have value around the league. What could the Pistons get for them in a trade? The Pistons do want a four-man in free agency. They're going to be active. They have 50 to 60 million in cap space next summer. I'm told some names to keep an eye on: Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Tobias Harris, as well as Miles Bridges. And so this is 27 games and counting. They can try to go make a trade right now, but at this point, nothing is changing their season in the trajectory that they're on.
Four-man, they need a three-man, a two-man, a five-man. They need
all the men.
The fact that they have a priority in free agency is shocking because they need everything, bro. This is ridiculous.
All right, so that was Shams of The Athletic and FanDuel TV on their Run It Back daily NBA show. So he says some names to keep an eye on: Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Tobias Harris, and Miles Bridges. What do you think, man?
I don't see how any of this is going to make a big difference for what the Pistons got to do. There's more work than just like trading for, like, these are good, like Pascal Siakam, all-star level. OG Anunoby, we know what he is, a solid role player. Tobias Harris, solid role player. Miles Bridges, I get it, but none of those names really push the Pistons in the right direction to what they need, man. I honestly, what I'm looking to do, like, I know these names and I want to get your guys' thoughts. I'm looking to trade some of the guys I have. Maybe you trade a Cade Cunningham. Maybe you trade a Jalen Duren, because bringing one of these guys in doesn't seem to be would probably push the team in the right direction. Andrew, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about trading one of those guys on the roster already?
Yeah, I wouldn't trade Cade. I think he's a generational talent, to be quite honest. I mean, he's just been phenomenal his whole life. Like, just a top level player, was a #1 pick for a reason. The Jaden Ivey thing I could see because I think he does have some trade value, and I'm sure that teams around the league feel like he's not utilized right. You know, he was getting those Ja Morant comparisons in college, which I never understood that because he never had quite the vision or athleticism that Ja Morant does. But he's a very talented guy with two-way potential, super elite athletically. And I think he would have a lot of trade value for some younger teams and maybe bring in somebody because he's not being used right. There's obviously something going on with him and Monty because, as you said, like Killian is getting more playing time than him. Like he should be the guy getting more playing time. So if you're not going to use him right, you might as well trade him to a team that could use him and bring something back. They got to definitely shake things up. And to your point, I don't think any of these names make a huge difference. Pascal, any team. Pascal could almost help any team. Really great basketball player. As you mentioned, Al, all-star. Miles Bridges, I mean, you're trying to change culture. I don't know if Miles Bridges is the guy to bring in right now. I don't know.
Fact.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, Cade, Duren, and I would include Ausar Thompson in that core.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the core you want to keep. But you have to figure out, like in the case of Thompson and even Duren, it's like, you know, how are they doing from a player development standpoint? Is this too much for them at this moment? Like, do we need better veterans that can come in and kind of, you know, allow these guys to grow into their roles on this team, right? Like, a lot of people want to blame Tom Thibodeau. We go back to the Knicks thing. A lot of people want to blame Tibbs for his lack of player development, but also when you look at how a guy like Emmanuel quickly came up, yes, he got 20 minutes per game as a rookie, but it was selective, right? Like Tibbs would put him in spots where he felt like he could succeed. And ultimately, here you go, three years later, he's almost sixth man of the year. He grew into that player. He grew into that role. He grew into their most reliable role player in the fourth quarter, the guy that logged the most fourth quarter minutes for that team. Like he grew and developed and evolved over that time. I think they need to evaluate, you know, is this too much right now for even Ivy or Thompson or Duren? But I would look at Cade, Duren as Thompson's that core. I would look to move Ivy if you could get something for him. And then, you know, those guys that Sham's name, like none of those guys are necessarily going to move the needle, but you need a shakeup. That's what they need. Mm-hmm. They need a little bit of a shakeup here, man, and you know, get some of those guys out of there. Those names that they listed, those are tough players, two-way players. Look, the Miles Bridges thing. Yes, he's trying to get culture, and that's probably a bad name to start with. He just couldn't even go play the Raptors the other day. You know, got his passport denied. But that's a hometown kid. It's a hometown product. Athleticism off the chart. Maybe a fresh start, fresh scenery. Send them home. Maybe that helps both sides, right? Like, listen. You know, everybody wanted to cancel Latrell Sprewell aside after he choked out PJ Carlissimo. Hey, came to New York and captured the heart of the city. That was a hard thing to do after we lost John Starks. He did that in 1 year. I'm just saying, you never know. I'm not here to prop up Miles Bridges and everything that he did and all of that, but as long as he's in the league right now, he's still an active member of the NBA. You never know. That could be a spark. You bring the hometown kid home, him and Cade running and gunning out there. Who knows?
Maybe.
Go ahead, Al.
Nah, maybe that's. I don't necessarily think he needs a change of scenery. I just don't see what, like Miles Bridges to me he's an ancillary piece. You got to figure out what the core pieces are before you add. Like you can add a Miles Bridges, but I don't see him taking this team to the next level. Saying, "All right, we got Miles Bridges. Now we're gonna start winning some games, and we'll be okay. We'll be in the mix for everything." It's got to start within, man. It's got to start with Cade. It's got to start with Thompson. It's got to start with Duren. If that's your core right there, you said it. You got to figure out how you're gonna get these guys involved and acclimated. If I'm Detroit. Though, like I think I forget if it was either UCP or if you, Andrew, said you got to trade Ivy. I think it was you, Andrew. But like I'm looking to trade Ivy and just looking to get in that vet that you're talking about, CP. Like you need somebody who's going to hold these guys accountable. I mean, you see what Eric Gordon was saying about the Houston Rockets last season, right? Like you saw that there was no accountability there. It was not serious. He wanted to get out of that situation immediately. But then you go to other situations, and you can even talk about the Knicks, right? When you have someone like a Burks, you have someone like a Taj who's a good role model and knows how to get these guys in the right mindset to compete on a night-to-night basis. I agree with that, but you also need a guy who's also talented that's willing to take that challenge on. Like you had somebody like that in Jeremy Grant, but then didn't work out there.
So I think the NBA is so much about meshing skill sets and tendencies even more than sliding positions at this point, right? And CP, I really love those three. Like I want to see those three stay in Detroit, but with those three, I think you need shooting, spacing, and defense, right?
Yeah.
So like we have to look at that archetype of player. Tobias is kind of that guy out of these three.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even want to be that guy. Like he wants to be the guy with the basketball.
Right.
So yeah, you need to find a guy who really wants to fit those type of roles at a high level. So that's what I would say. These guys don't really fit so well outside of Tobias with Cade, but Pascal isn't, all NBA guy at one point. So you take him if you could get him, right? He's just going to make you better right off the bat. But none of these guys are really a great fit, or as you guys said, move the needle.
You're right. Especially they need the shooting, especially. I mean, they're one of the worst shooting teams in the league. No question about it. I just feel like, when I look at this roster, I look at the depth chart, like they don't have dogs like that, man. Like a lot of these players they have are soft. Killian Hayes, Ivy, Stewart is cool. He's a tough guy, New York guy. We know that, but he doesn't have the talent to kind of back that up. He's good as their emotional leader, and that's why I'm not even sure if they trade him. You could use him because he brings you that toughness, that physicality. But Burks, Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, Bogdanovich, even a coach, they're just soft all across the board. They don't have hustlers. They don't have go-getters. And that's why I say a guy like a Miles Bridges, you need some more toughness, some more edge in there. And that's why I say, even though he may not fit skill set wise to a T, maybe that's a little spark. You get some athleticism in there, hometown kid. You get him in there, throw it off the backboard. You know what I mean? Bash on somebody. You need a little bit of a spark, man, because behind Cade, I just don't see it.
Yeah, they're lacking grit for sure. It does seem like they're kind of just rolling the balls out. Let's get some cardio in. Let's just get some open run. Like how I go to Equinox, just get some shots up. You're right. The grit isn't there. I totally agree. And maybe you're right on that point. Maybe they need a guy like that to just really force himself and will himself into the game. That and shooting is definitely lacking for this team.
Big time, man. And as we look at their schedule, I mean, when does this thing end? Because
Celtics, right?
It's at Celtics tomorrow on Thursday. So I don't see that. Maybe it's
so it looks like they are breaking the record.
Yeah. Maybe it's Saturday versus Toronto. Could it be New Year's Day in H-Town? I don't know. I don't see it. Or
when you're talking about CP, the grit and the mentality is right there at H-Town. Okay, between the head coach Dylan Brooks, that ain't gonna happen.
Dylan Brooks, what Andrew? What do you think?
Nah, the Dylan Brooks thing was always crazy to me. How the whole internet was telling him he's about to go play in China. I always thought that was ridiculous. That guy was always a really good basketball player with tremendous
Oregon
grit.
too.
Yeah.
Everywhere, bro.
He always had grit.
The Dylan Brooks takes were some of the worst takes of the internet. Worst takes.
Yeah. So maybe it's Saturday home against Toronto. Maybe that's where they find it. But at Utah,
they bring Pascal back home with them from Toronto.
Bring Pascal back home because after that they're at Utah, they're at Houston, at Utah, at Golden State, and at Denver before coming home to play the Kings. Or maybe it's the Spurs, January 10th. You got Spurs on the 10th, Wizards on the 15th. What'd you say?
Maybe it's Utah.
Maybe it's Utah. Maybe it's Utah where they break the curse there.
Although they did lose to the Kelly Olynyk Jazz not too long ago.
They did. So they should be out for revenge there, man. But man, 27 straight losses, bro.
That's tough to do, right? It feels like it's tough to do.
Yeah. Because they didn't even build that team with the intention of doing this.
100%. They want to win some games this year. This wasn't a tank. This wasn't supposed to be a tank year.
This was not supposed to be a tank job, man. But here we are. So,
man.
Salute to everybody in the chat. Once again, hit that thumbs up button for you boys. I had one more thing on this Detroit team, and I completely forgot, man.
Sam Hinkie's probably smiling somewhere that's the way you tank. Right. That's the way you do it.
Man.
Andrew's in disgust.
Yo, did you hear the governor go he looked like he was on a Zoom call. He needs to get his camera up if you're the governor of the team. But anyway, he went on, he's like, don't panic. We're way past panic, bro. We're way past that, bro.
Yeah, we're disgusted.
You got fans saying sell the team. So now it's about to start hitting you in the pockets. You know, God bless those fans because they've been loyal. They've been patient. As we said, 15th in attendance. But now it's going to start hitting your pockets. And when you look at the teams, when we just talk about the schedule, that's the thing I wanted to talk about. Jacques Vaughn, the head coach of the Nets, when he met with the media after last night's game, he said, I didn't sleep that much because I knew how hard this game was going to be, especially trying to beat a team 2 nights in a row. So you could imagine no team is going to want to be that team.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? You're going to get everybody's best shot. So now in the dog days of the league, now you got guys getting ready for you now. Like you the Denver Nuggets.
Adam Silver, who would have knew it? The midseason tournament and a 27-loss team is going to give you some great games in the doldrums of the NBA season.
All of a sudden, Joel Embiid gets healthy again. Maybe Draymond comes back in the Warriors game, you know?
Oh my God,
man.
It's like when the Warriors were on that winning streak, right? I forget what season it was. I think it was their 79-game win season. They start off the season real hot. But you can remember the team that broke their record, which was the Boston Celtics. The team that loses, that breaks the record to the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
Look, man. Woo. What's
yeah.
How is that going to be worse though? The 27 losses though, or 28.
Bro, I remember when Knicks fans got on me because I was tight that we almost lost to this team. And they're like, whoa, CP, this is a professional basketball team. I said, no. We're not supposed to lose to them. All right. We are not supposed to lose to them. So Detroit basketball, Detroit Nation, hang in there. Better days ahead.